Congratulations for making it through, almost through, day 2 of Ignite. This is Elevate Your Communications Manager with Qualified IT Pro Tools, your BRK3379. My name is Jamie Stark. I have been working with this product for a little while now, and recently have a role in engineering now that looks after some of the investments that we do in the Office 365 admin experience for Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams. And I also have the pleasure of working with our partners that extend the capabilities of our manageability experience with Skype for Business. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. I like saying this is your BRK3379 because we really like to get feedback from you. This is really your session. You are our customers here in more ways than one. And we really do care about this stuff, and I missed it. I missed talking about this in our last session, and so I want to make sure, please, we read this stuff, and we care, and so please give us feedback, good or bad. We love to hear about it. Unfortunately, I cannot control the temperature of the room or the comfort of the chairs or the availability of giant cups of coffee throughout the conference center. I brought this from my hotel, but we love all the feedback, especially about the content. And speaking of the content, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the Skype for Business IT Pro Tools program. So this is a partner program that we've been running now for a little while that has partners come in and qualify their solutions. So that way, we all know that they operate in a particular manner with Skype for Business. I'm going to talk through kind of what that means and the work that we go through with our partners to go through that validation and that qualification process. There are a bunch of different categories. A lot of times the tools out here will span across categories, and so in some cases, more than one product is, or more than one category is going to be associated with a particular product. We'll kind of talk about what that looks like, and then of course, what we're doing going forward within the program and how we like to see this evolve. So thanks to everyone for coming out. Just at a high level, kind of thinking about partners in Skype for Business and the value that they bring broadly, across more than just the IT Pro Tools program. Many times, very specialized scenarios that require a deep domain expertise is one of the areas where our partners help tremendously. I think about cases of really specialized reporting. I think about cases of specialized contact center solutions. I think about cases of specialized clients like the attendant console, but cases where there's a whole lot of great IP that partners bring into the mix and that extend the functionality of our software. Many times that means interfacing with other third-party products. That means interfacing with our competition. That means fundamentally being able to take advantage of the capabilities that customers have today, being able to extend the facility of those solutions and have them operate very well with Skype for Business, and really functionally kind of completing the customer journey across the life cycle. We don't have an opportunity to cover all of these scenarios, but with our partners, we strive really hard to do so. And that list is published out on the website, Partner Solutions at skypeforbusiness.com. But just so you know, the qualification process is not signing a check and a rubber stamp, and then we go off and we do marketing. There's a whole lot that happens before then, and any one of the partners that works with us through this process or through qualification of phones or session border controllers is going to tell you that it is rigorous. The first thing we got to do is we got to think, what's going on in the ecosystem where we need to have a solution here that partners can come and address. Like, what are some of the things that are particularly troublesome for customers? We think about then having a set of APIs and a set of integration hooks within the product that partners can glom onto. So first, we've got to feel good about what those APIs look like. Many times we're in active co-development with partners, or we're kind of doing early releases, and partners are giving us feedback on stuff that's never appropriate for external consumption, and helping us kind of refine what that looks like. I remember with the SDN API, for example, there's a whole bunch of work that we did in kind of versions up to point 1 and then going from point 1 to 3, where there was a whole bunch of iteration that we were doing with our partners and getting great feedback. Ultimately, though, a test plan and a specification is created so that way our partners can know what it is that we expect that they do. And then that actually goes out as well, in addition to going out to the partners, that goes out to a set of third-party test facilities that we work with. Those third-party test facilities ensure that, one, we're not the blockers when it comes to folks qualifying, that, our own busyness and other, stuff going on with our labs doesn't inhibit folks. And two, it provides an honesty, right? That we write the spec and that there's a third party that's both evaluating the spec and evaluating the veracity of the products that are coming in and testing against it. Partners then many times need to do a bunch of engineering in order to become compliant with the specification. That will ask them to do things that they hadn't planned on doing before. And so they need to think about, hey, maybe in the case of integrating with our session border control, integrating with a session border controller with Skype for Business, maybe they need to support particular versions of like the ICE standard, or they have to do particular ciphers for SRTP, things like that. But essentially, there's a lot of cases where they're going to have to do more work in order to make sure that they're adhering to the specification. And then when that work's done, they go to a third-party test facility to actually execute through that testing. Not all of that is successful. Sometimes there's some iteration there, but at some point, the product becomes certified, and then marketing can happen. Then they're included in our website. We get to talk about it at places like Ignite. They get listed on the website. There's press releases. There's all sorts of fun stuff that happens there. And probably the most important next step after that is that our support is aware of that integration. We know then, what that means, what the different integration points are. We've got the test report that we can use should there be a problem that a customer has with an integration with a certified product. And so that's what we're going to be doing today, is we're going to be talking through the products that have been certified in the IT Pro Tools category for Skype for Business. And so when I think about the categories, they kind of break down in this fashion. So I think about the different segments over time. So kind of starting at the top and going down through a deployment lifecycle, through a deployment stage. So first, asking the question, hey, is this thing even going to work with what I've got today? Is this Skype product going to work with the infrastructure that I have from a fundamental networking perspective? That's our network pre-assessment category. So understanding how the product is going to operate across a variety of network topologies. Then kind of, assuming that the network is going to be really good, how can we get started and up and running really quickly? We've got two categories there. One around user and policy provisioning, so automating some of the policy work, and then around migration, a new category that we're announcing here at Ignite that essentially provides the ability to slurp up all the configuration from an existing PBX system, normalize that configuration and that kind of topology of data around users and capabilities, and then be able to automate getting that into a Skype for Business deployment. Many times, customers are going to have really squirrely, complicated issues that deal up and down the networking stack. So maybe the router in your network is dropping DSCP and you're having a particularly tough time in some calling scenarios. Sometimes those things can be rough to go and troubleshoot, and it requires a combination of understanding what's happening at the network level with what's happening up at the Skype for Business application media stack level. And so there's some great work that our partners have done to correlate those things together and to troubleshoot some of those complicated cross-vendor issues. Then finally, of course, we understand many customers have heterogeneous environments and want to think about operations and reporting across multiple products. And reporting is something that we try to do really well within Skype for Business. I think we get a portion of the way there, but there are some products that are specifically designed around reporting that not only take into account Skype for Business, but other products within your environment and can present a single holistic view of KPIs and of chargebacks that are necessary or other types of things that you would want to report on in your environment. So what I'm going to do is go through each one of those categories in some depth, starting with the network pre-assessment. And this is kind of fun and exciting for me because I get to just showcase a lot of the glory of our partner solutions and the things that they bring to the table. Optimally, I would have a representative from each one of the partners come up here and do live demos, and that would take somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 or 5 hours. The folks at Ignite thought that might be a little rough to be able to accommodate, and so what I'm going to be doing is kind of going through each one of the categories, showing some screenshots and showing some of the material from our partners, kind of talking through where some of these solutions operate. I'm by no means an expert on all the different capabilities of all the different partner solutions, but have some contact info at the end that you can use. And certainly, if there are any particular questions, I've got contacts with all these vendors and partners, and we can certainly connect folks together, either here at Ignite or when we all head out. But with respect to the network pre-assessment, the fundamental thing that we think about here is understanding what the network topology is like prior to going into a deployment. So before I'm going to go and roll out servers or go and connect to Skype for Business Online, what are the elements that I've got in the network, and can I assert with a fairly high level of certainty that my end users are going to be having a great Skype experience from the beginning of the deployment, right? We absolutely don't want to be in a case where we go and we're all at a deployment and we realize, that router's really blowing stuff up. Of course, an end user, they're not going to be thinking about the router blowing stuff up. They're not going to be thinking about the fact that the wireless network is configured inappropriately. They're not going to be thinking about the fact that you don't have a great network connection out to the internet. They're going to be thinking, the Skype stuff that you deliver to us just sucks. Like, come on, what are you doing here? So we want to remediate that as much as possible prior to going into the deployment and prior to expending that work. And so, we want to think about, like I said, Wi-Fi density. We want to think about WAN topologies. We want to think about all the different areas of the network and how we can measure that and how we can assert that, hey, this is going to be looking good. At each one of these kind of introductory slides to a category, I try to talk about what the APIs are that are being used here by the different partners. And really, in this case, it's some version of the Skype for Business media stack that's being exercised in each one of these cases, which is not a real API in a sense, but that's fundamentally what folks are doing in the sense that they're trying to create some analogous version of Skype media traffic, measure what happens from point A to point B, and then report on that across a variety of time horizons. And so there are now 3 products that are certified in this category. Ixia is a new one. They have recently become qualified here with their Hawkeye product. Ixia really comes from a history of doing a lot of kind of really in-depth work on the Wi-Fi side, and so they came to us with a lot of great Wi-Fi expertise. There's been a lot of really great understanding that we've gotten about Wi-Fi from Ixia, and they needed to extend a little bit into the WAN side in order to complete the certification. Prognosis from IR is one that was one of the first products in this category. These descriptions are actually from the partner. Software-based solution for Skype for Business, really thinking about user experience management, performance management, monitoring, and troubleshooting. Prognosis does a lot of stuff and exists across a few of the categories here within the program. It's a suite of capabilities, much like the Nectar suite of products. So Nectar is also going to be showing up in a lot of these categories because their products are used in a lot of different fashions, not just in the network pre-assessment category. So when we look at the UC Assessor product from Prognosis, so this is a slide from IR, thinking about the manner in which they can provide testing for on-premises deployments, for cloud deployments, and for hybrid deployments, essentially looking at all the different network topologies, both site-to-site and site-to-cloud, being able to measure those, being able to test across all of those locations simultaneously, and then aggregating all of those assessment results. And so a product that has been that's been exercised really, really well, and we've had lots of great success with it with a whole variety of customers. When we look at Ixia, again, Ixia has come from the Wi-Fi side, not necessarily exclusively focused at Skype for Business. Folks have been using Ixia for kind of application performance management and application performance understanding across a whole variety of different applications. And so the facility for Ixia to test, testing Google or testing other kind of public cloud services in addition to Office 365, thinking about not just bandwidth, but other key performance indicators across the network like jitter and loss, MOS scores, that sort of thing. Thinking about not just voice, but also video, specifically Skype for Business traffic and other elements of Office 365 applications. And of course, I mentioned Wi-Fi as well. And so with their product, real-time operations dashboard they talk about here, providing the ability to see kind of as your test progresses, what the view of those tests look like over time. And then finally, Nectar. Again, like I said, Nectar, much like IR, has had a few different products here across categories. And so with Nectar, again, some of the same facilities of thinking about, hey, how do I test not only across sites, not only site to cloud, but also thinking about particular home offices. I'm sure many of you have executives that like to work at home, and that there's an expectation that even though you don't control that network, that Skype for Business is going to work great over that network as well, even though that network is a consumer class internet connectivity, right? Nectar talks about the fact of using both short-term pre-deployment assessments and kind of ongoing active monitoring. That's one of the things that we do have to recognize. The network is a fluid animal. The network is going to change and evolve, and there's going to be drift in configurations over time. And so thinking about having a capability here that tests and measures over that period of time, I think is pretty cool and is pretty interesting. Included here a couple screenshots of this is from Nectar's tool, so you can see actually getting down into the network topology layer in the upper right-hand corner, where I can see from the data center through a series of routers, both public and private monitored routers, what that quality looks like. I can see it actually generating not just views of loss and jitter and delay, but also MOS score as well. So really kind of deep information here that Nectar is able to provide in their tools. One of the things that I want to also say, prior to going forward here, all of these capabilities, all these tools have slight differences and have slight kind of particular features that are going to be appealing to one group of customers over another. Microsoft, we don't necessarily specify that, or we won't say, hey, you've got to go and do these extra things to go and differentiate. But they all have certain differentiation. So I encourage you, if you're interested in doing some pre-assessment prior to your Skype for Business deployment, or you feel like, hey, our network has undergone some change, maybe it's a good time to go and see what that's like. Investigate all these tools, talk to the folks that are here at Ignite, and see which one fits. The fact that they're all certified as part of the IT Pro Tools program means they meet an incredibly high standard. And so we are happy with all of them. And many, many times I get asked by customers, well, I know they're all listed on the website, but which one should I use? And I can't answer that, right? One, it wouldn't be fair. And two, I don't know, what your particular situation is, right? So all of these products I don't have any issue recommending, because again, they've been able to meet a bar that is very, very high with respect to both the capabilities of the product and the veracity of the data that they're providing. User and policy provisioning. Really interesting category. So thinking about now, how do I think about when I've got a group of users and I need to assign policy to them en masse, or I need to provide particular service information to them en masse, how can I automate those processes? This is one of those things that, as customers move from kind of more nascent stages of deployment of Skype for Business into being a little bit more comfortable with their deployment, a little more sophisticated, now you're starting to think about not just, hey, do I have the right policy, but how can I assert that I have the right policy provision? How can I make sure that everybody who is a lawyer who's based out of Austin is going to have this set of policy that we actually are required to have, for our regulators or per our corporate policy. So this can get into not just the kind of creation, but also ongoing management, and then compliance and audit logging to ensure that I can go and validate on a monthly basis that all the 50,000 users that I've got operating in Skype for Business are appropriately configured against the definitions that I have. A lot of moves, adds, and changes that get automated here, and providing the ability to manage these at a group policy level. Sometimes many orders of magnitude kind of abstracted from what we're doing in Skype for Business. So thinking about groups of policies almost as a profile for a user. So as opposed to thinking about applying a meeting policy and a voice policy and a dial plan, I can slurp all of those up together and say, this is the profile that I have for a particular user category, and then having that automated from a provisioning perspective. Leveraging from an API perspective, many times PowerShell, sometimes the often poorly regarded CFUtil. CFUtil, for the uninitiated, is a set of utilities that we published for being able to do moves, adds, and changes to users, telephony configuration on the back end without having to go through the client. So essentially, surgery on the core database that manages the configuration of a user to be able to do stuff like automatically set their call forwarding without them having to go through and execute that in the client. 2 products have been qualified under this category. First, Unify Square has a PowerSuite provisioning product. So PowerSuite is a whole set of different products that they have kind of combined together. The provisioning segment of that has been certified here in the user policy and provisioning capability. So one of the things that Unify Square really thinks about is not just kind of the automation of assigning and changing and dealing with phone numbers and endpoint devices, but is also thinking about that assertion of that all my policy is configured appropriately over time, and that I can go and I can query that, and I can get some assurance that there's no deviation from that policy. Unimax's Second Nature product also qualified in here. So being able to do provisioning, phone numbers, automated DID management. A lot of customers, even as they start to get to scale, start thinking about DID management on Excel, which I can only imagine to be horrific and painful. Having some software behind that to be able to kind of automate some of that and to be able to provide some tooling and some reporting against that provides some significant benefits. This is a view of the PowerSuite tool from Unify Square. What this is showing is the set of compliance rules that are configured against a particular customer. So seeing that, for example, particular sites are having users enabled for both, in this case, Link and enterprise voice capabilities in the back end, but for other sites, ensuring that those users are only configured for Link and maybe PC to PC messaging. So, maybe across different sites, I have a slightly different set of topologies. Maybe the folks in Houston have got PBX phones, The folks in the Gotham office don't. And so asserting that and assuring from a compliance perspective that all of those policies are set and that this can be kind of operated and run over time. Unimax, this is a view of their Second Nature product for provisioning and number management. So they're able to really very powerfully think about provisioning across several orders of magnitude of scale. So thinking about tens of thousands of users being able to provision with phone numbers, making sure all those phone numbers are in correct E164 format, extensions, toll-free, et cetera. And then being able to apply policy across groups of users very quickly with minimal sets of actions. Here again across both of these products, they fit into the requirements of this category with respect to user and policy provisioning. Both of them have some differences. Both of them have some great benefits. And if this is a need for you, if you're today, kind of still operating a scale of Skype for Business deployment, there could be some, there could be some great benefits by taking advantage of some of these products with respect to automating phone numbers, automating the management of endpoint devices, so forth. Delicious coffee. Monitoring and troubleshooting. This is actually the place where we kind of got started initially with the concept of IT Pro Tools. This is a particularly hairy set of problems for us as Microsoft to go and start to troubleshoot, because we don't have any kind of view of what's actually happening in the network. What we like to do is throw packets into the stack and assume that they show up on the other side fairly undisturbed and unmolested, which of course we know that is sometimes not the case. And so understanding exactly where those packets are being tortured along the way and providing some great actionable guidance for customers to be able to remediate that is all about what this segment is about. So it is, first understanding what's happening from a media perspective in Skype for Business. So this is, super down in the weeds about the way that we're seeing RTP transit across the network, and then getting that information and having that kind of mapped to a sense of what the quality of that media is. So as I look across the network and I look at RTP streams that are going from end to end, understanding how those RTP streams first are related to quality. So as I see a particular set of network traffic, I can associate that to quality events that are being reported by Skype for Business. Oh, I can see that this call ended with a particular MOS score from a network MOS, from a listener MOS perspective, and then understand how that is related to the actual traffic that's happening across the network. In nearly every case, these are multi-vendor and multi-platform in scope. We're looking way up and down the network stack in these capabilities. And so what I mean by that is we're looking into what's happening at the switch, we're looking into what's happening at Wi-Fi, we're looking into what's happening at my WAN routers, we're looking into what's happening across the public network and then at the destination. Skype for Business is going to give you this view of the endpoints and of what knowledge we have of what's going on at the endpoints, but all that information in between, we kind of treat as a black box. We're throwing packets in and we're expecting them to transit to the other side. And so what these folks are doing is that they're able to provide some window into that black box. But from a Skype for Business perspective, they're really taking advantage of all of the APIs that we have available in the server. So they're pulling QoE information, they're relating that to the CDR records of the actual calls. The SDN API is going to be providing mid-call information about what's happening to different quality events directly out of the front end, directly out of the kind of core SIP router that's managing the communication, and they're bringing all that together along with network events. And so the two products that we have in this category, IR Prognosis for unified communications is the first. Again, IR provides a very extensive suite of capabilities here, and really looking at, again, diagnosing and troubleshooting problems at all levels of the network, right? Fundamentally looking to find that root cause very quick, minimize any kind of user impact, and looking at both calls that are happening live, calls that are happening in flight, meetings, and so forth. I know incredibly large deployments that are operating and that are remaining, that are keeping quality with IR Prognosis. So when it comes to scale, both here and with Nectar, a lot of the most kind of sophisticated and complicated Skype for Business server deployments are being monitored by these products. Nectar, talking about kind of bringing all the IP information together, correlating that with insight into cross-platform UC issues. So the other place where both Nectar and IR get into is looking into the session border controllers, looking into the Cisco environment, and then bringing in the Cisco telephony environment and the Cisco networking environment, bringing in that data together to understand, hey, maybe the SBC is being goofy, maybe there's been some drift across the network, things like that. So a little bit more this time on the IR front. They have a great view here on the right of all the different data sources that they're pulling together. So in-call information coming from the SDN API, scheduled and post-call information coming from our CDRs, QoE metrics that they're bringing in, Windows events. So what's happening on the server? Are there queues in the fundamental in the server that are topping out? Are we finding that disk latency is really bad? Are we finding the latency coming to and from the back end is really bad? Is there stuff happening in Active Directory where we're getting delays in getting authentication, things like that? Trying to bring all of those possible events and correlating them all together. So as you can imagine, there's a tremendous amount of data that these products are having to manage or are having to piece through, and working to do so in a way that is in near real time. So bringing together all of these pieces of data, correlating it all for giant networks is not an insignificant task in any stretch. They really describe this across kind of three different buckets. One, ecosystem, performance. So they talk about not just network device, but also session border controllers and gateways, like I mentioned. What are the server roles that are operating in here? And we're getting data and getting logs off of those server roles. The fundamental information about the hardware infrastructure, processes and perf. There's bad quality that can be caused by so many things in the pipeline here. So making sure that there's a view into all of those different elements. From an experience management perspective, again, looking at CDRs and QoE, activities of conferences, correlating that information together, and then providing alerts and reporting. So that's the other kind of big area to think about here, is not just kind of ongoing management or troubleshooting, but hey, when there's a problem, we'd really like to know about it before the users call into the help desk. And so, anytime that user calls into the help desk because they've had a bad issue, being able to reply with, "Yep, we're aware of that. We've gotten alerted to it. And we know what's going on, and we're kind of go down the path to fix it," is a lot better of an answer than, "Oh, hey, thanks for telling us. We had no idea that was going on. Okay, let's go crack open some logs and go figure out what's happening." This is a million miles away from that type of work, and it really advances the capabilities that folks can bring. Thinking about troubleshooting, so thinking about this across my sites, across different pools within my sites, across the specific servers within my sites, the subnets and the gateways, and all these different components that are required for Skype for Business server deployments. thinking about the real-time and historical activity, even getting down into monitoring and troubleshooting at the SIP messaging level. So this is when IR talks about very deep Skype performance and experience visibility, that's what they mean. Like there's almost no depth that they can't reach into to try to bring some of this information together and be able to correlate this stuff together for the purposes of troubleshooting. And here's a view of their Path Insight product. So just to kind of give you a sense of the density of information that's provided in here. Again, I'm not an expert on these products, but clearly there's a tremendous amount going on here and a tremendous amount of power in being able to bring all of these data elements together and to be able to provide them, not just all these pieces in a single screen, but then to be able to provide the insights on what this means with respect to specific quality events in your network. And so as customers move to greater and greater scale with Skype for Business Server, these tools have provided a tremendous amount of benefit for customers in that domain. Nectar. So Nectar has a really good kind of view of bringing together all the different health data sources. So this is an example of how they think through kind of a bad call. So first the SDN API providing kind of the basics around statistics for session quality. SDN API is going to give you client information. It's going to give you connectivity information. Bringing that together with network analyzers, so probes that are operating out in your network that are sitting on the span port of the router, collecting events from that router, and in your real time, understanding how those events are related to the actual call information that is coming from the SDN API. So SDN is going to say, hey, I'm standing up a call with this 5-tuple information. Nectar is then able to say, oh, I've got span ports on the routers that are monitoring across those IP address ranges. Now I can bring that information together with router peering and polling as well. And so as they do that, more and more information about what's actually happening at the network layer is getting exposed and is getting teased apart here. So a lot more great capability is being able to really understand across all these different segments what's actually happening with my media, and then what do I need to do in order to go in and remediate it. So here from a root cause perspective, again, because they're sitting on the span ports of, because they're sitting on the span ports of the routers, they can see like, oh, okay, this is my, set it down. So this is my flow across from endpoint to endpoint. I can see, that's awesome. I think this is a PowerPoint thing. All right, we're gonna do it one more time. I'm going to talk really quick. I can see it across from endpoint to endpoint, all the different network elements they're in. They're getting all this information, they're correlating it all together, and I can see, oh, there's a problem right in the middle, and okay. So just seriously though, like IR and Nectar have been working with us from the very beginning of this program, and it really was some of our earliest and largest Skype for Business Server deployments that drove some of the interest here, where we started to look into, hey, why are quality events happening at the SBC? Why are quality events happening in the network layer? Why are quality events happening at the PBX? And for customers to be able to have 5 sets of logs and try to bring all this stuff together, like it takes weeks to go in and troubleshoot some of this stuff. And these tools are able to shrink that down into minutes, if not hours, or hours, if not minutes. And so for folks that are at scale, definitely don't hesitate to go and reach out to these folks because there's a tremendous amount of facility that's provided that's never really something that we're going to be able to do, right? We're never going to be able to get into that network layer in the same way. We're never going to be able to get into all the different third-party products in the same way. And then speaking of third-party products, from a reporting perspective, the reporting products that are qualified in the IT Pro Tools program are also very much multi-vendor, very much multi-platform in scope, trying to solve the problem of, hey, is the entire UC solution that I have deployed in my environment, not just my Microsoft stuff, but everything else as well, how is that operating end to end? So thinking about not just kind of the initial, hey, how is my adoption going, but how is usage tracking over time? And once you kind of get comfortable with, from an adoption perspective, and it's rolled out to everybody and everyone knows how to use it, and then they're actively using it, and you're kind of going forward, then you're starting to think about, well, how do I think about my chargebacks? How do I think about reporting against compliance? How do I think about the cost of these different services? And what's the actual return that I'm providing to the business as a result of operating these services? And so these are some really kind of key important questions that in many cases it's not something that we as a product team can solve individually, but that's something that can be addressed by products that look across multiple different elements within your environment. So 2 products certified here, Nectar, again, and the advanced reporting capability. So thinking about doing performance analysis against the SLAs that you've established for the service, thinking about traffic optimization across the network. Obviously, Nectar's doing a lot of this kind of very deep network analysis, so they can bring that into their reporting suite as well. And then Quest UC Analytics as well, looking at again not just a couple or one kind of product in a silo, but looking across all the different communication systems. And I like how they have this turn of phrase, turning the data trapped in your communication systems. It's true. There's a tremendous amount of data that we are collecting in Skype for Business. We don't always do a great job of exposing that from a reporting perspective, but products like this can take all of that information and can put that in a very consumable fashion for customers. And so a couple of views of the Quest solution first. So this is looking at just kind of raw activity. So there's a ton going on here. So on the left in that table is all the different departments that they've got broken out. So I can look not just at kind of total activity, and I've got to sort across what are the departments that are most active across sales and production and customer service, and then breaking that out across all the different types of modalities. And here they're showing an example of, hey, I've got some Cisco happening in my environment, because that's reality. We've got lots of customers that still have heterogeneous deployments. This is a key kind of problem for them to solve, is thinking about, I want to view this in one place. I want to be able to have one view where I've got my Cisco data coming together with my Skype for Business data, and kind of think about those trends over time. And so they're looking at both email traffic, and they're looking at Cisco traffic, and they're looking at, in this case, Link conferences and Link peer-to-peer sessions, in addition to Cisco conferences and Cisco peer-to-peer sessions. And having that all on one screen, that's a tremendous amount of work to be able to do that by hand. These products have the facility to be able to do that straight away. Here's from a chargeback perspective. So a lot of companies have thought about doing chargeback models, meaning the folks that are in France, they're going to be paying for their meetings, they're going to be paying for their telephony, they're going to be paying for their usage of the system. And that's going to be different from the folks in Spain. That's going to be different from the folks in Germany. Trying to be able to crack that sort of situation can be fairly significant. It's going to be a lot of work to think through. And so being able to have a model where I'm relating the quantity of my traffic and the quantity of my sessions to a particular dollar value, and then have that broken out by different department for the purposes of chargebacks. Tremendous amount of work, but you can see very simply done here with the Quest solution. Nectar, with respect to advanced analytics, again, they're bringing in, I think I know what it is. I think that there's an auto forward for the Nectar slides for some reason. So I wonder if I can Stop that. No. It's just not fair, man. I want to talk about the Nectar stuff a little bit more. So we are not going to have any more transitions across every damn slide in here. Perfect. I totally blame that on the scrubbing from Silverfox, but that's not what happened here. At Nectar's Advanced Analytics. The information is in the PowerPoint presentation. Nectar's solution is fantastic. Again, they're bringing in network data as well, and they're correlating that. All down together. Well, maybe this was from my. No timings, no narrations. Let's try that. Okay. We're going to be moving on for the purposes of time to migration. But again, content's available. Please don't hesitate to go out and to download this. Please don't hesitate to go and reach out to our partners so they can provide a lot more great information about specifically how they're operating, how they can best operate in your environment. Our set of programs continues to grow. And as I talked about earlier, one of the first steps around our IT Pro Partner Program is around the question of, what's the need in the environment? Like, what are the things that our ecosystem is looking for with respect to having a great operational experience with Skype for Business or getting into Skype for Business. And so this one is a segment that is brand new. Again, we're talking about this for the first time at Ignite. And there's not only a new category here, but there's also a new certification process for migration. So what we're doing is we're working with a variety of products, both in the lab and in customer environments as well. We're actually doing a mini TAP, or a technology adopter program, with these products, because what migration does is it allows customers to take the topology and take all the configuration of an existing PBX system, normalize that into a data structure that then you can do some edits, you can do some work against, and then have that imported into Skype for Business. And essentially start off running Skype for Business with the same set of configuration that you had on your existing Cisco PBX or your existing Avaya PBX. Where this came from was a lot of customers saying, goodness gracious, it's really hard for us to take this existing configuration information and think about moving it into Skype for Business. It's a super manual process, and it's really time consuming and difficult to do so. So in listening to that, it was very easy for us to think through, like, yeah, actually there is a lot of complexity here, and thinking about products in the marketplace that come and address that made it a really easy thing for us to add on this additional category. And so, like migration, there can be other additional categories in the future, depending upon the needs of the marketplace and what's available out there from our partners. But this is the one that we have added new and fresh. Today, we're looking at moving from an existing PBX system to Skype for Business Server. And the decision was made there, one, because we see in the market, yes, definitely, lots of folks are super interested in moving to cloud. But what we're hearing from customers that have existing on-premises PBX systems is that in many cases, they're just really looking for a like-for-like replacement. And so it made sense for us to kind of first, address that need in the market. And then secondly, you may have heard some stuff happening here at Ignite about Microsoft Teams. And we really wanted to make sure that when we provide the capability to move to cloud, that we're able to migrate folks into cloud solution going forward, which is going to be Microsoft Teams. And so we're absolutely going to be adding additional scenarios to the migration program over time. But we're really excited about what we have available here with the new migration program. Why is it so hard? If you haven't had the pleasure of cracking into this specifically with your own environment or with your customers, if you're an SI, there's a whole lot of work that needs to happen here. First, obviously the PBX and Skype for Business have very different requirements. We have a requirement, of course, for every endpoint's Active Directory associated. The PBX may have not even any clue about what Active Directory is. It may just kind of have identity as a function of the user's extension, and that's it. The configuration of the PBX can drift over time, just like we see configuration drift in the network. Maybe the original intent and the way that the PBX was configured now is significantly different from the state that it's in today. Even in the cases of the state that it's in today, you may want to look into that, and you may want to be thoughtful about what you're taking forward and what you're not. Of course, our wonderful marketing organization chooses to sometimes name things slightly differently than what they're known broadly in the marketplace. And so, a lot of times, Skype for Business can do the same stuff as an existing IP PBX, but they're called different things. A shared line appearance may be a delegation, for example, or a ring down group to a team call, things like that we can map intelligently. And when you're doing this work, it is a highly, highly manual process. So it means many times, kind of iterating through the PBX configuration, kind of documenting it manually, and there's a tremendous opportunity for there to be error introduced in that process. And so let's use software instead. And so we have two partners that we're working with for the migration category. Unimax has a product called Migration Pro. And I love their quote: if you have customers that are migrating from Avaya to Skype for Business, you have a tool to cut your effort and duration in half. This stuff isn't hyperbole. These are dramatic improvements in both quality and with respect to the time and the cost that's involved. And if you're an SI and you're hearing this and you're slightly concerned, like, hey, wait a minute, that's half of my billable hours, I would challenge you instead to think about, wow, those are billable hours that I can then take to my customer and do more valuable stuff with, like do adoption services or integrate with their line of business applications and do the other cool stuff that is awesome with unified communications that many times get pushed to a P1 or a P2 because you're having to document all the stuff out of the PBX. You don't have to do that anymore. Both Univonics and Unimax listed here have completed the testing in the lab, but Univonics has also gone through and completed all of their work with respect to their TAP customer as well. Unimax is still working with their initial TAP deployment. And so Univonics has the official certification now. We're getting them up on the website slightly after Ignite because we got busy. And Univonics has, again, their message here, helping system integrators and service providers, minimizing time, the cost, and the risk, and the complexity, using process automation and some great user experience work. So just to kind of break this down into a little bit more detail of actually what migration is about and the capabilities here, I think about it in kind of four big steps, and this is definitely an oversimplification of this. Where I think about the plan necessary to do the analysis. I think about taking the configuration data from the PBX, cleaning that up, and making sure that I'm making any configuration updates that I need. Then, what are the configuration changes that are needed on the Skype for Business side? And then finally, committing that move over to Skype for Business. So if we look at each one of these steps in sequence, from an analysis and planning perspective, first, gathering all the data off of the source PBX, gathering all the data off of the voicemail system as well, right? Because you want to be able to associate voicemail appropriately when the user moves over to Skype for Business with Exchange Unified Messaging. Thinking about any dependencies of the data. So cases where, do I have Active Directory accounts for each of these users? This gets into a lot of the nuance around, does the Active Directory name match the name that's in the PBX? Well, the PBX may not even be able to represent the character set that's used in AD, right? Like you may have literally different characters in there that could blow this stuff up. The software can understand what that looks like and can match all that stuff intelligently. We can now key off of if there are any particular sets of functionality that are available in the PBX but not available in Skype for Business, and if that's a big deal. So call coverage groups and speed dial buttons and stuff like that in some cases is supported by Skype for Business completely. In some cases it's supported in Skype for Business in a slightly different way, and in some cases it's not. And whether that's important. And then finally, defining the groups of folks that should be migrated, right? You don't move everybody over in the company over in one step, so I want to get a tranche of users, kind of define what that looks like, and then process those as I go forward. So the data cleansing is a tremendous amount of work, right? Do I have a bunch of users in AD with the same phone number? Do I have them with the same DID? Obviously, in Skype for Business, you can't have cases where I've got 2 users with the same DID. Client settings, so our folks, configure with call forwarding, configure with simul ringing. Going to the source PBX and actually enabling the editing of vectors or the editing of route points within the PBX automatically, cleaning up telephone numbers and extensions, thinking about pickup groups and hunt groups, moving users off of that. So if I'm moving a tranche of users and they exist in a hunt group on the PBX, so I don't want to leave them there and then have that error out and fail. So I need to go and have that edited and have that kind of cleaned up, right? And then so essentially now I've got this kind of cool, clean data structure, independent of the PBX. Now I can start thinking about getting those users created into Skype for Business. Of course, we're not talking about just users. We're talking about objects as well, things like common area phones and analog devices. I'm going to want to go and set up response group services. I'm going to want to go and set up all of these kind of fundamental back-end processes that have responsibility for operating and managing calls, and then configuring policy, editing user settings, and so forth in Skype for Business. And then finally, when I think about finalizing my move into Skype for Business Server, thinking about what's the group of users, whether that's a region or department or a phone number range, making sure that I'm not migrating incomplete groups of users, that everybody is moving forward. I'm testing that voicemail boxes are configured. And I'm kind of making sure that all of these piece parts end to end are all rational and they're all happening. This is all it's all kind of straightforward stuff, but at the same time, it's a lot of work. It's manual today, and with software, we can make this significantly better. Unimax has taken that kind of high level process, and of course, there's a lot more detail behind it, and so there's a couple of views of their kind of set of planning. Here, looking at 9 different steps from gathering data through doing matching and creating different personas. So they've got this concept that I was kind of talking about earlier of thinking about kind of, groups of profiles of users and assigning those groups of profiles, those groups of policies down into user groups. Looking for any anomalies in that data, are we matching with AD and so forth, thinking about gaps in functionality, creating the groups or the tranches of users appropriate for migration, cleaning up all of that data, resolving all the AD users, after making sure that all that data is clean, recreating the migration groups, and then moving those folks over to Skype for Business. And they have optionally the ability to go in and dive into the source PBX and kind of clean up what's going on in the source PBX. So maybe cleaning up the routing rules, maybe actually automating some of that process. So it's not just reading all the information off of the PBX, but they also have the ability to push in information into the PBX to go and change that core routing after the users have been migrated. So just a tremendous amount of sophistication in what these processes look like. Just kind of a view of of their user experience here. I got to laugh at the name they chose for this this particular example of Matthew. You can imagine lots of different examples of complexity with respect to the data that exists in the PBX, and making sure that it remains clean all the way through the transition process into Skype for Business. With respect to Univonics, Univonics is a slightly different model where they're operating instead of as a local application, they're operating as a cloud service. So this is a view of the Univonics user experience here. I'm just going to build out these different pieces. So thinking about first feature parity. So what are the sets of users that are going to be completely satisfied with all this stuff they have in Skype for Business in comparison to what they've had today in their existing PBX? Getting a list of all of the legacy PBX features that are configured across the environment. Thinking through all the different endpoints, hard endpoints, soft endpoints, mobile, that sort of thing, and then all the different sites and an indication kind of at a high level of what their readiness is to migrate, right? So I can see here, oh yeah, maybe San Francisco has got some folks that are configured using particular sets of features or capabilities in the PBX that aren't reflected in Skype for Business. It's a good thing for us to go and scratch into and understand a little bit more. And then here, kind of getting into the user details and a little bit more specificity, looking at matching what you're getting out of the PBX with what's available in Active Directory, making sure that there's a link between those different data structures, understanding exactly what's set up within that data structure. So understanding, hey, here's their number, here's how they're set up with particular phone services. Do they have a second line? If so, yeah, that's a feature parity thing. We don't have the concept of second lines in Skype for Business. We have this concept of private lines. It's different. It functions slightly differently, and so that's something to flag and something to definitely to be aware of. So I've talked about this in a few different ways, but I just want to kind of hammer the point home here. Why do you want to migrate using software? Your deployment's going to be faster. Your accuracy of data, what you're capturing off of the PBX is real. It's not what somebody thinks is real because they're kind of they're iterating through it. It's the actual configuration of the PBX that we're using to start with, and by doing so, it really gives you an opportunity to have a seamless telephony migration. For both the telephony configuration and in voicemail, of course. Big time reduction in cost. Again, I look at that as an opportunity to do more with the implementation of Skype for Business. And as a result, getting end users to adopt a little bit quicker. Hey, this configuration is the same as what I had in the old thing. Okay, cool. Yeah, the UX is different. I get it. I can do more stuff with Skype for Business that I could in the past. But all the stuff that I expect to be here is here. And then hopefully providing a big reduction in the migration support that's required afterwards. So we still are absolutely on the hunt for more customers that are interested in participating in our TAP program with this. So if you're in the process of going through a migration from an existing PBX, want to be automating some of that with software, don't hesitate to reach out because we're definitely interested in expanding out the TAP program and getting more and more, both more and more partners and more customers engaged here in this process. Because we think this is it's super cool to be able to use some of these tools to be able to really grease the skids of migration. So hey, in summary, when you're using Skype for Business IT Pro Tools, instead of having some questions, we go, yeah, in my network side, this app works awesome. Hey, maybe I'm going to need some new APs. Maybe I'm going to need to throw some more bandwidth at a couple WAN links. But I know by using the network pre-assessment tools that the app is going to work great. I can easily migrate. I can easily manage policy. I can easily assert that the policy is what I say it's going to be, and I can do compliance checks against that. Those squirrely cross-vendor issues, we've got insight into what's going on here, and they can be they can be sorted really quickly, and we can definitely understand what's happening. Through the reporting, fundamentally, to me, this is about demonstrating the business benefit, right? So this is about you as IT being able to report up to your management chain, yeah, this stuff is real, we're saving a lot of money, we're doing a lot of good work here, and you can see that through the reporting that we're doing. But none of this is possible without all of our partners and all of the great work that they've been doing over the last few years within this program. So I just want to say thank you to all the partners that work with us. No, it's not the easiest thing in the world to work with Microsoft on a day in and day out basis. Sometimes it can be tough, but all of them are absolutely phenomenal, and the certification means a tremendous amount to us in terms of their dedication to our vision for unified, now intelligent communications and customer success. And these partners are also here at the show. So Quest, IR, Nectar, Unimax, they all have booths here at the show. So I definitely don't hesitate to go and check them out. I'm going to get some time tomorrow to go and walk the show floor in between booth duty, and so I get to go and see all their setups. Definitely don't hesitate. This is why they come out here, and it's a great opportunity to start to talk to them in depth about your topology and your environment and what you've got going on. So with that, just two quick things. I always like to leave up the curated list of highly relevant sessions. Generally, when folks come out to a session like this, I think this is the sort of stuff that you'd be interested in, about moving to a hybrid UC environment with BJ. Francois and I are going to talk specifically about the opportunity to migrate from Avaya to Skype for Business, because Avaya's got some stuff going on that makes migration a great topic. And then all into some great detail from folks like Brian Ricks and Thomas Bender talking about some deep Skype for Business issues and media flows, respectively. Before I open it up for questions, I'm sure one of the questions that you may have on your mind is, hey, you've been talking a lot about Skype for Business Server. What about this online thing? And when are all these partners going to be available for online? That is not their fault, that is ours, because a lot of the APIs that we're using here exist only in the server and need to exist in online. You may have heard of this work that we're doing with respect to Microsoft Teams, and part of the reason that we don't have the kind of core APIs available today from a partner integration perspective is that we wanted to make sure that when we release them for online, that they were released with a knowledge of both Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams. So that's the work that we've been doing over the last few months. That work continues to progress. Don't have a time frame on that at this point. Of course, as customers, you're not necessarily going to know that first and foremost. I'm going to go and talk to the partners. We're going to have an updated specification. We're going to have an updated test plan. We're going to go out to the test houses, get that testing done, and then be rolling out these solutions. So definitely expect when we're talking next year, I'll have a whole lot to say about the facility of our partners to operate with the spectrum of capabilities that we have at. All right, maybe. So with that, we'll do questions, but always really, really appreciate when folks have an opportunity to tell what they think. I know this session is the I killed the microphone. I know this is the last session of the day. I know you guys are all excited to move on to the variety of social events that are planned at Ignite. But just definitely take an opportunity. It doesn't have to be tonight, but definitely take an opportunity to give us feedback, not only on this session, but all the sessions that you go to at Ignite, but really for the ones that are about Skype for Business and Teams, because we care deeply for that. And with that, love to be able to take some questions, and thank you so much for coming out. I only ask that we use the microphones for questions. No? Are we good? Everyone's so thirsty.
I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So, in the session on, is this
Yeah, please.
In a session on Skype for Business Server 2019, which is early days yet, there's discussion that SDN is going to be almost deprecated, was implied. Are the vendors going to be able to get ready for this in time?
So I saw the same on Twitter earlier this afternoon. Yeah, that's not something that we've totally bottomed out yet. Clearly there's still a need in the ecosystem for this level of data. If that means that it's coming through a different API, or if that means that we take the opportunity in the 2019 product to switch from the SDN API to something new and different and better, and maybe more cloud aware. There's the SDN API isn't an end all be all, right? There's definitely some things that if we would design it again today from scratch that we would make changes to. That being said, generally we're not in the habit of going and shooting a feature in the head in one release's time. If you're interested in examples of that, I can only point to remote call control, which has existed in a variety of terrible forms throughout a lot of different versions of Skype for Business. So yeah, don't have all the details of that. Clearly, it is still early days with the server, but I think there is an opportunity for us to be thoughtful about what we're bringing forward in the 2019 product. But thanks for the question.
When you think of ethical firewall, what jumps to your mind with regards to vendors that are in that space?
Great question. Yeah, so there are partners that exist in other categories outside of kind of IT Pro Tools, and that I can point to the session border controller partners. I can point to the IP phone partners. I can point to the folks that are doing attendant console, contact center, and ethical walls kind of falls into that. So slightly outside of the scope here. Yeah, there are definitely a bunch of partners that do ethical wall type work with us. And I know they're not the only ones, but they're the only ones that come to mind as I stand up here blinded by the light and dripping a little bit, and that is Actiance. But I know there are more that operate in this space as well. I just don't have them at ready command. So the difference is that it's a different qualification process, and it's a different process for us to validate those solutions. So just like phones have a different set of requirements, have a different kind of testing process than SBCs and the IT Pro Tools, so do some of the software vendors that integrate with Skype for Business. So that doesn't mean that it's just the way that we kind of manage it internally, honestly, and the way that we think about it. So yeah, thanks. Please.
There used to be a kind of an interesting tool called UC Commander from Event Zero for Skype. And yeah, exactly, good reaction. So there's this kind of nebulous press release that Microsoft acquired some technology, and then about a year later, the tool kind of disappears from the market. And are you guys doing something with that technology, or are you going to introduce it as a Microsoft product?
Fantastic question. I'm happy to give you my card, and we can follow up offline on that. It's a colleague of mine. No, it's just a colleague of mine that's looking after that specifically, and I don't have the latest and greatest details on what's there. Yeah, your summary of the situation is absolutely accurate. In terms of the kind of current state of Event Zero and where that lands, I honestly don't know. But I'm happy to go and find out for you. Not a problem at all.
Okay. I'll take your card. Yeah, some more information.
Okay. And gentlemen here as well that can. Oh, yeah.
Do you guys have a better answer for me then? Okay.
Appreciate it. Hey, thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you coming out. Have a good one.